live there. But for you to be here today to witness is one of the greatest gifts you can give Palestinians. To remember the names and the stories of Gaza is to say that it will never die. And I know that we will never let what happened to towns like cities happen to Gaza, inshallah. The people of Gaza should not have to be, but are resilient, and our community is too. This country, it feels like we're talking to a wall when it comes to Palestine. But we do it anyway, with the same heart and fire at every protest and every event. We continue to show up and force the world to remember their names. Speaking from the Lighthouse perspective alone, just last week, 45 kids from our community raised over $27,000 for Heal Palestine. We hosted open mics to listen to Palestinian voices, group counseling sessions and discussions, and watch documentaries together on the tragedy. This past year at the Lighthouse has provided Palestinians and non-Palestinians alike a chance to grieve, protest, and talk through everything that we've been watching. It's because of communities and organizations like this that it doesn't feel so isolating anymore, because we're all invested in witnessing it all together. As a Palestinian, there's nothing more heartwarming than knowing our community takes my people as their own. You cry for our homes as if you've lived in them, and you grieve for our kids as if you've raised them. You fight for them so much so that you're willing to risk your own lives to protect them. And Dr. Ayaz in particular is someone who did just that. I can't speak on their behalf, but I imagine the relief of the medical staff in Gaza, knowing that someone from the outside is coming to share their burdens with them so they don't have to feel like they're carrying the weight of their communities alone. Dr. Pathan is a local emergency medicine physician who went on a medical mission to Gaza in July. He traveled through the Jordanian checkpoint into the West Bank and from there into Gaza. And he spent a total of 3 weeks on the ground at the Indonesian hospital at the heart of Gaza City. Dr. Pathan risked everything to provide them with emergency care and receive patients of all ages who have been directly impacted by the militarized attacks. And he did all of this while uplifting their spirits and putting a smile on their faces. He's here today to share their stories and give his account of what he experienced under the siege. So may God grant Dr. Pathan and his family the highest reward for what they've risked and endured. May God grant the highest level of Jannah to our martyrs and ease to those still living under occupied Palestine. And may Allah be pleased with our community for our efforts.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. And to you, thank you very much, Sarah. I mean, I don't know how I'm supposed to follow that. And her words were far more kind. So what I usually tell people as I start this is that I'm not a public speaker in any way. I went there as a doctor to help people do what I can, but I came back with essentially a mandate from a lot of different people who said, you have to go back and share our story. You have to go back and start your real work. So ultimately that is what I plan to do and continue, inshallah, to fulfill that mission. What I will say is I greatly appreciate being here. I told the Lighthouse that this is going to be my best talk because I'm speaking in front of college students. And all of you really inspire me. I've seen what has been done in the colleges with the encampment. You risk a lot, right? You risk potentially your degrees, you risk going to jail. Certainly many of you participated against your parents' wishes. And so I want to say that I saw that inspired me, and the people of Gaza saw that, and I promise you they saw that because we talked about it. So what I plan to do today is talk about a single picture. This is the picture. I'll give a little bit more detail about it, and then the common phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about the decision to go. Why did I decide to go? A lot of people ask me that question. I only really show firsthand pictures. I felt that one, I have over 600 pictures and videos that I took, and I thought it's far better for me to talk about what I know firsthand rather than sharing a picture that one of the other doctors shared with me in a case that maybe I wasn't in. So that's something that I'll, inshallah, stick to not only today, but any time that I talk about various topics. Really what I'm going to focus on is my time in the South. And Sarah mentioned that I spent time at Indonesia Hospital, which is in the north. That is a whole separate topic to talk about. There's a lot of issues with food. There's far more destruction in the north. There's far less supplies in the north. But that's not to say that things at Nasser Hospital in the south are really significantly better. So the picture that I will share comes from Nasser Hospital. I like to say that I have no disclosure or conflicts. I'm really not here to speak on behalf of any organization. Yes, my wife is the executive director of Lighthouse Project, so maybe that's a little bit of a conflict, but she has not seen this presentation, so I think I'm okay in the clear. And then show a little bit of time for questions. All right, so it's not about me, but a lot of people ask questions about me. So just some quick details. I was born in New York. My family's originally from India. Kindergarten through medical school, I was in North Carolina. So pretty much North Carolina raised, even though I wasn't born. As an aside, this is a lesson to my youngest, that if you make stupid faces in pictures, you will get put on blast. So if he's watching on the webcast, just know you got what you deserve. NC State for biochemistry. So, many years ago, maybe I went to school with some of your parents. Just kidding, no cap, they're boomers. And then Emory University in Atlanta, for where I trained in emergency medicine. And then I've worked at 3 of the top 20 busiest trauma centers in the US. So just show that I've seen a lot of this stuff. I have not seen what I've seen there. So the question on why I decided to go, and today I'm going to give a truthful answer. I've given this answer a couple of ways, and truthfully there are a lot of different reasons that I decided to go. But when you break down in Islam, one of the fundamentals is you join good and forbid evil. And I tell my kids that sometimes it's simple, right? It's just you look to see where the good is and you join it. You see where the evil is and you forbid it. The other thing, if you look down here on the bottom right, you see my form that basically says when you go, you may die. As a matter of fact, the first conversation I had with an ER doctor, he was frank with me and said, Ayaz, I'm just going to tell you, when you go, just be prepared to not come back. So, I didn't tell Brother Burhan that. He may have changed his mind of encouraging me strongly to go, but that's the truth, right? And we've seen certainly several NGOs be targeted and deaths happen. But then you see up here, fear. So fear drove me to go. And I'm sure all of you have witnessed kind of lots of school shootings, and I use this as an example, but there are few school shootings where there's a resource officer on campus that is armed. And in a few instances, you hear stories about how they took up a defensive position and they've heard multiple gunshots. And the fear that I have is that one day God will put me in a situation that I have the ability to respond and I freeze up and I don't do it. And I thought this is one of those moments. I have the skill set, I have the family support, I have the community support, and to not go would fulfill that fear that I didn't do the right thing when I had the chance to. So here's a picture. At the end I'll have a QR code where you can actually download the picture if you're moved by some of the discussion here. But so this is from Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. This is southeast corner of the hospital, the 4th floor balcony. For those that know some of the stuff about apertures and things like that, which I don't, put some of that information on there. So let's orient very quickly about this picture. So if you look kind of straight ahead, we're really looking at Rafah, and certainly to the left. Since it is in Khan Yunis, the stuff towards the right to the Mediterranean Sea is Khan Yunis. Obviously behind us is also Khan Yunis. And then you can see over here the Google map. That is essentially where that picture is taken from, where you see the circle. Just make a quick note of kind of some of those palm trees you see there. And this is Dr. Hosni. So he is an Egyptian doctor who came with Palestinian Children's Relief Fund, so PCRF, They do great work. He lives in Cairo. He's sitting there, he's smiling. He's actually probably a little bit depressed because he told me goodbye in the morning and said, we're leaving. I hope to see you, but not too soon. They got turned back by the Israelis and said, you can't exit today, for no good reason. But he kept good spirits, and alhamdulillah, he was able to get out a couple of days later. In the background, where that sunset is, he can see the Egyptian land. So, all right, so Nasser Hospital, I have some pictures here of it, is the largest hospital in southern Gaza. Now, it's a little bit difficult to say, what is the largest hospital, because when Shifa Hospital got taken down, this was actually the largest hospital in the entire strip. And then when this hospital got shut down, certainly it was not the largest hospital. So it's a little bit nebulous, but in the South specifically, it is known to have typically the most services and whatnot. So I just want to run through very quickly the timeline of the siege. So, I think everybody has seen what happened at the beginning of the genocide to Shifa Hospital, but very similar things happen here as well. As a matter of fact, when I would go to the dorm area, you would see the big black X's on the wall where the IDF would walk in and clear the room, and then mark the room as clear. So January 21st, it was surrounded by Israeli forces. What we're speaking about is the surrounding areas of Khan Yunis. They'd come in. The 23rd, there were some evacuation orders. At that point, nobody could enter or exit the hospital. A lot of the doctors had brought in their family members to stay with them because it really wasn't safe anywhere else. February 8th is what is known as kind of sniper assault. And if you look at the top left picture and the top right picture, that is the front of the hospital. So when I would walk out, they would show me the building across the street where on the top floors there would be IDF snipers that would shoot anybody that would walk out, right? Paramedics, family, whatever it is, they would do it with essentially no consequences. The 13th, there were evacuation orders for displaced people. What that means is that a lot of people came to the hospital because it was considered a safe zone. So the Red Cross, Red Crescent had declared this a safe zone. And so they said, all you people that are here for safety, leave. The 14th and 15th is where it really gets muddy. The hospital is raided. Despite being a safe zone, there's shelling and forceful evacuation of the hospital. And what happened during that time, other than some clips you see on social media, is not quite clear, and investigations were not allowed to happen. The hospital closed in March, several months later, opened in June, and I was there last month. So, as a college crowd, you got to show your work, right? So this is, I think, critically important, is that we don't need to talk about conjecture. We don't need to talk about what our opinion is. These are really vetted things that have happened, right? With photographic evidence, with other evidence, reported in the media. You can find good sources. I will not have Fox News here, but honestly, you'd probably find Fox News reporting some of this stuff too, because it just is undeniable. So you'll see a few slides that look like this, so just keep in mind you can find it. So back to the picture here. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I'll try to stay on track here. So we'll start with right here. So this is on the left side of the picture. We'll zoom in a little bit, and it becomes clear what's going on here. You can see on the bottom left, this is a little bit zoomed into that picture. On the right, you see it as well. And then the two pictures are closer. So it's clear what this is, right? Let's see. So this is the morgue, and there, what you saw there in terms of the janaza prayer and taking the bodies, that was all day. The only time you wouldn't see that is at night, essentially. So at this hospital, in particular, out this window, 70 to 100 plus deaths a day, depending on what is going on there. The services are free. So I got a chance to spend some time with the sheikh there. And so our whole team went and sat with him and just heard what he had to say. So he would tell us a lot of stories. I'll share a little bit of insight. So one of the things he said is death and destruction can only come with the permission of God, right? That this would not happen unless it is allowed by God, by Allah. So I think, and he went on to say that, listen, we know that what the IDF, what Israel is doing is not good. We know that it's evil. We know that it's not right. But we have to remember that there's something more to it. So he then went on to talk to us about how Allah loves us. And so if this is a test, we must accept the test. He used an example, and I see Nadia leaving. Nadia, do you punish your kids ever?
Never.
Okay, so she punishes her kids. And his point is that you get punished out of love in many cases as a parent. He says, this is what we take as a people, that Allah is testing us, Allah loves us, and he went on to say that there are some people that are here in Gaza that maybe weren't going to make it to heaven. And he said that this is the test that they needed to carry the people. So, I mean, to just think about that type of statement and how you're processing all of this stuff. And this is a guy who's seen so many deaths a day. Then he went on to talk about how a lot of the doctors were jailed, they were killed, certainly targeted, and imprisoned, and then left, right? Some just up and said, I'm not staying here, right? I have the ability or resources to go. And this was probably one of the most touching things that he said to us. He said, the form of hope comes in these conversations. That he says, I know what you've seen on social media, I know what you've seen in pictures and videos, and you came. And then he said that if you looked up in the sky and saw fighter jets coming from Egypt, that would still give him less hope than what he sees in the people that have come here to help and what he hears about happening in American colleges and those things. Like that's where the real help comes. And it was touching because, having been there already 48 hours and hearing bombs all the time, right? I mean, there's almost no full hour you can go without hearing it. You just think to yourself, why won't somebody send fighter jets, right? Like, why won't somebody help? And yet he found hope in some of this stuff. So again, we'll show your work. So I think that the numbers are clear. And these numbers, as you can tell from one of these sources, is probably underestimated. It's probably 200,000 easily. Back to our picture. So what else do we see? So what you can see here is a building, and at the top of it, you can tell it's been burned. So what is this? This is a dialysis center. So the picture on the right is the front of the building. The one on the left is obviously from the picture itself. So what can we say about the dialysis center? What we can say is that this building was not bombed. It was very specifically burned, and the machines for dialysis were specifically burned. Now, the interesting thing about it is when I went to Indonesia Hospital, the exact same thing happened. Is the dialysis building, the machines were burned, and then one of the nephrologists who went to Shifa Hospital, which is the biggest dialysis center, had the biggest dialysis center, he said it was the exact same thing. So he was there with the WHO, UN, to go and see if they could restart some of the dialysis there. Because anybody who knows anything about dialysis, if you don't get your dialysis 3 times a week for 3 to 4 hours at a time, you die. And so what happened when they burned all the machines? Exactly what they wanted to happen, right? 30% of the people died, just right off the bat. You can't get to dialysis for multiple reasons. Number one is that it's probably not safe to travel. Number two, the gas is cut off, so even if you had a vehicle that wasn't destroyed, you can't get there. Number three, even if you got there, all the machines are burned. Number four, the doctors aren't even there, right? I mean, they've shut down the hospital. So there are a lot of reasons that we saw such a spike in the mortality with these types of patients. Now, we talked about how that number of 40,000 is an underestimate. Here's why, right? So rinse and repeat this for all other chronic diseases. Like, if you're not allowing medications for diabetes to get in, you can't get insulin. And even if you got insulin, you don't have a refrigerator. What do you think is going to happen to these patients, right? They're not going to survive. Now you add the extra stuff that we talked about, the access to the care. If you don't have a doctor, you're not going to see the doctor. If you can't transport yourself to get to the hospital or can't get there safely, you're not going to go. If there's no food, I don't care what disease you have. I can't think of a single disease that gets better with malnutrition. And then more of the same of the burning of the dialysis machines. You know, we were giving medications for active heart attacks that we typically would not do in probably any other country for the most part, because that's all we had. The specialized equipment will burn. In the north, in particular, Indonesia hospital, they came in and they burned the CT scanner. Same reason, right? That less access to be able to take care of patients. And then incubators, ventilators, all of those things are also destroyed. So again, share your work, right? We have plenty of sources which are really telling us what's going on. So, all right, let's move on. So some of you probably in the dialysis picture saw this, some ambulances here. And so what we have seen, and actually the West Bank are seeing some of this actively, is IDF is delaying and denying passage. So if there is a mass casualty incident, they're stopping the ambulances and paramedics from getting there. So that's probably step number one in being successful in a genocide, right? They take ammunition fire, they're bombed, they're targeted, and there's plenty of evidence for this. And again, in that picture, you're seeing some ambulances which have taken some gunfire. You're seeing some that you can't even recognize, right? Because they're completely destroyed and just used for parts at that point. So, all right. So we'll move on to this picture on the right. And so as we look at this closer, you can tell that it's the building is being hit and destroyed. But when people ask me what is the thing that you think was worse, and it's hard to say, right? I think that the food scarcity is worse than I expected. Certainly the amount of death that I saw, the amount of children that I saw, all that is bad. But I think probably from the second you enter, the destruction is really something that that hits you. And so, I mean, half of the videos and pictures that I've taken probably are just destruction pictures, because I thought to myself, wow, that's bad. And then 5 seconds later, I'm like, wow, that's bad too. And it keeps going. So this is really just a fraction of it. This is a mix of stuff from the north and south. I'll point to that middle top picture where you see the minaret there. And then I like to show something which obviously is not my photos, but this is what it used to look like. And that's really what is a stark reminder that this was a city that is functional. That mosque or that minaret you saw, all of that is here, right? So you see in a couple of pictures here. I mean, first of all, you don't see this amount of cars anywhere. There are no roads. They're all completely destroyed. All right, so this is something that gave me a little bit of hope. Right? I have a quote here from Pablo Picasso: "Every act of creation is first an act of destruction." This is a good piece here that came out a couple weeks ago by Bloomberg. It really talks about how many billions of dollars it will take. So to really rebuild what we've seen, and then you see in as a city this graffiti on the wall. So this gives me some hope as I pass by this on our travels from the north back to the south. The promise that we will build it. All right, again, show your work. There's plenty of evidence for all of this. All right, let's move on. Here are the palm trees. So I mentioned the palm trees earlier on the Google image. And so what happened to these palm trees? Well, we see here what happened to them is that they were bulldozed. And what is not clear to me, And there's a little bit of debate in the media is the use of mass graves. Certainly at times when there was high levels of deaths, the cemeteries were full, and we were seeing that people would have to be buried under some palm trees and things like that, with the intent to move them when the situation stabilized. But clearly, there was something more going on here. So that's where I point you to this, which is the site of the mass grave at Nasser Hospital, which hopefully many of you have heard about or read about. What is admitted here is that the IDF said that they took up bodies, right? So they literally bulldozed bodies out of the ground, and they claimed they were looking for hostages, so they were collecting DNA, but they were doing it with respect and dignity. I don't know how use a bulldozer and respectfully or with dignity do that. Definitely confirmed that there were over 300 bodies found in this mass grave. The part that does not make sense, and again, we talked about the 14th and 15th being very chaotic days. We don't know exactly what happened. There are no eyes on the ground. Nobody knows. But what we do see here is some of the way the bodies were found, right? Do you know of any proper Islamic burial, any janazah that involves somebody in medical scrubs with their hands bound behind their back, right? That's not something that happened with a family member that buried them. There's plastic bags with Hebrew writing. Again, who knows what they were doing. Catheters were still present, IVs still present. Again, that's not a normal medical procedure. You would remove all of these things and then deliver the body to the family to bury. So most of them were not within the spectrum of what we'd expect. And then signs of field execution were reported in the media. Again, let's show our work here, right? We have the evidence behind us. It's not conjecture. This is stuff that reported BBC, CNN, NBC News, right? AP. All right, so this picture here, again, going back to the picture that tells 1,000 words, and probably way beyond 1,000 words here, but you can see here, that's smoke, right? And smoke came from a bomb. That is from the, as we oriented ourselves earlier, from the Rafah area. So we saw a lot of activity in Khan Yunis, in Rafah, on a regular basis. So all of these pictures are from that direction. So again, on the right, you can just see that same picture with the smoke there. On the left, you see an F-15 fighter. And I always tell people the story that they used to love to fly at high speeds in the morning, create the sonic booms, just to try to scare the people. I'm sure most people slept through it. You can see also in Khan Yunis, this was post bombing as well. And then you see some flares in that third picture. And these flares are used to light the sky at night for tank movement and for potentially Israeli soldier movements. We suspect that probably they use this just as a scare tactic as well a lot of times, where they weren't doing any of that stuff. Again, we have evidence for all of this stuff. I'm going to point out this in particular. The strike on Khan Yunis kills 9 people after an ordered mass evacuation. How am I doing my time? And so, what is this mass evacuation? I got a slide about this. So, we had a mass evacuation in Indonesia hospital. So this came while we were in the hospital, and that red zone is where we were in the hospital. So we basically got notice that the IDF is going to begin military activity in your hospital. And so I asked a lot of questions, like, what do we do with this? So this was sent via SMS, via text message. And then the next step is they'll drop some of these flyers, exactly the flyer you see there, by fighter jets. And they're usually sent with effective immediately warning. So I asked the question, what is effective immediately? Sometimes it could be an hour or two. Frequently it was minutes, and then at times I was told that they would sometimes bomb first, drop the leaflets next. And then I was interested, and you see the timestamps of these are texts from this morning, that I asked the question, I said, hey, what are the other ways that they send you these evacuation orders, right? Like, do they come out with loudspeakers? Is there any other way that they do it? And these are the responses that I got, right? So from Osama and Hani, this is what they kind of told me to answer this question. So you can read that, and again, this, and I should actually put up pictures of them, because I have pictures of them. But when you read that, it hurts your heart. It hurts your heart even more knowing who these guys are and thinking about their families having to go through some of this stuff. So what about my personal experience? I didn't go into a lot of that because I walked through that picture, I know. But this is kind of a summary of it, is that, I don't know what to tell people when they ask me that question, like, how was it? There were times that were amazing, right? Even with some of these doctors and nurses, connecting with patients who were not in critical conditions. It meant a lot to me. There are things that I will never, ever forget. And then there were times that I went to my bed at night and I cried silently. And I don't know what to say. I mean, there are 12 guys there, and they're trauma surgeons, they're plastic surgeons, they're vascular surgeons, there's pediatricians. They're seeing all the same stuff. And sometimes I wonder if they were crying silently at night. And if they weren't that night, I promise you there were times that they were, because you just felt like you weren't enough. And then I got a chance to meet some of my heroes. This is an award-winning Al Jazeera journalist, Hisham, and I think it was great to hear some of their stories. I see children have tons of stories of children who, and how brave they were, and again, interactions with them. I think this picture, I saw this child standing at the desk where patients will come up, and I asked one of my medical students, I was like, hey, can you find out what that kid wants? And he talked to him, and he said, he just wants to see you. I said, no, we'll bring him over here, let's take a picture. And he doesn't even have access to the picture, but he was thrilled to take a picture, right? So again, it was a lot. So with that, here is the QR code. So if you're interested in that picture, feel free to grab it. It takes you to a Lighthouse page with a donation. You're welcome to not donate anything to the Lighthouse. And you're welcome to donate something to the Lighthouse too if you want, but you can download the picture regardless. And then I'm happy to take questions. I don't know if we're gonna moderate it or.
So tell us, what is a normal day in your life while you were there?
Yeah, I think it really depended on what your specialty was. I think that for the surgeons, they got up in the morning and they typically had some cases that could be done electively that were not necessarily emergencies. For me, the day varied, right? So we would usually judge what was going on based on either somebody calling us and saying, hey, you need to come down, there's a mass casualty incident, or in many cases, you hear the bombs, but if you feel the bomb, that's when you know you come down, right? When it's close enough, it's like within half a kilometer, that you need to go down there. And it was actually different in the South and the North. So in the South, at Nasser Hospital, I spent more time in the trauma bays and mainly dealt with mass casualty incidences. In the North, I integrated with the team and was essentially working ER shifts. So I would see patients who were not in always critical situations, and we would see kind of a variety of everything. So, there's not much to eat, so if we got a meal a day, that was good. I think I lost about 12, 13 pounds. But that pales in comparison to what the other doctors have lost, and these are people who, a lot of times people are trying to take care of them, right? So imagine everybody else and what happened in that, so.
So I wanted you guys to know, I've been communicated with Ayaz for months, and then when this happened, I had this fear, what if something happens and I'm involved in this? It was not easy. For that reason, I wanted Nadia, Kareem, and Mrs. Pathan to stand up and give them a standing ovation for saying, Ayaz, okay, because I cannot believe a mother, a father, a wife would send somebody on a trip like this. So for this, we love you, we thank you, our community is proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll tell a brief story that I told the Carrie Masjid is that I kept getting delayed. This was all, and not just me, obviously my team, kept getting denial to move by the Israeli organizations. It was all an effort to make it difficult for us to go. And for me, it turned out to be quite a blessing because I got to spend more time with the doctors there. I know for my family, certainly it was very difficult for them to not know, especially in kind of the situation that it was and what was going on. But again, I think everything that happened there, I consider a blessing. And again, when I was telling people goodbye, they all reminded me, you have to go tell the story. So, yes.
As an NC State alumni, do you have any words on the investment in Israeli apartheid as a university, or words to students who are advocating for this?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that honestly, everything about who I am in this country is questioned, right? So you mentioned as an NC State alumni, it is embarrassing, right, to have that kind of investment. Honestly, I'm embarrassed even as a taxpayer, right? And I was telling somebody that I brought the one thing I left Gaza with. It's a tradition of the doctors to leave everything, right? People are leaving their shoes or leaving whatever. So I left with basically a pair of scrubs, I have my underwear, socks, and that's it, right? You're leaving everything with people. But I left with a piece of missile shrapnel, and the doctor reminded me, he's like, hey, take this, as we kind of pulled it off one of the stretchers, because this is US made, right? I mean, this is like our tax dollars at work. So my advice is exactly what you're doing, right? I mean, this is why when I started this conversation, I said I'm inspired, right? That question inspires me. Like, what can we do? What should we do? And I think number one is we have to use the evidence, because the evidence is there to show that we are absolutely sponsoring a genocide, right? I didn't touch on a lot of that, but I think there's so much evidence for that I saw with my eyes, in terms of like withholding medications, withholding food, those types of things. Like, what is Hamas going to do with like water, right? Who are they going to hurt with that, right? Who are they going to hurt with some eggs, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. Clearly, we know what the purpose is. So I think as NC State students, as students, college students in general, I mean, if you think about the past, all of the major movements have been sparked by what's going on in colleges. So, you know, again, I commend you guys and continue the hard work. And whatever I can do to support you, let me know.
We had heard how at the very beginning, right after October 7th, the food and the water and the electricity were cut off. So I just wonder, like, how are they able to live with no electricity, no water? How do they get by?
I think there's one answer to that, and that's resilience, really. And I mean, you know that's something with the people. I remember there's one Friday where one of my medical students, he showed up, and Friday is the day that you take off, right? So the students don't show up. And I asked him, I said, Fawaz, like, oh, you came. And he said, what do I do, man? I live in a tent, like, staring at my family all day. There's no electricity, there's really no internet, there's like nothing. He's like, I'd rather just come and spend time with you. The hospital has a generator, we have some spotty internet access. With the food, I think, again, like I caught myself several times where I'm treating regular illnesses that are easily treated by proper nutrition, right? Something simple like constipation or whatever, and I have to stop myself from saying the obvious answer, which is like, oh, you need to eat something other than bread and drink water, right? There's nothing else, right? I mean, I have a picture one day that the UN food program was able to get in some eggs, and I kid you not, these are doctors holding up an egg and taking a picture of it because they haven't seen it for like 7, 8, 9 months. They haven't seen an egg, right? And so they were so excited to see that. And I'll tell you that half of the food that they were trying to bring in, the World Food Program, got spoiled. So even that was made very, very difficult.
Yes, with the, first, Jazakallah khair for this great service. I really applaud you. Secondly, with so many doctors going and experiencing this, not just from within the Muslim community, but from outside, what's the impact on the broader medical community? How are you guys making it adapt? What's the reaction? Because you meet colleagues, you tell them, I went to Gaza, this is what I've seen, and so on. What's the reaction? Is that making any difference?
So I think the answer to that is mixed, and I'll tell you this based on something I did on social media. So I'm part of 2 big physician groups, and I worked with a couple of local ER doctors here and said, hey, I want to put together a very factual representation of what I saw, the evidence behind it, and I want to be able to put it out in a manner that the normal kind of Zionists that respond, these groups have like 40, 50, 60, 70,000 people in them. So you have Zionists in there. And as soon as somebody says something about Gaza, they say, oh, what about the hostages? Tell me about the hostages, right? I don't want to hear about all these kids dying. And so one of the groups, we put it out, got a ton of responses, a lot of private responses from doctors that are not Muslim that are asking me, how did you go? Can I go? Tell me about the conditions. A lot of discussion kind of publicly. And then the other group, the moderator deleted the post and said, we can't moderate when anyone brings up Gaza. And in the same day, there are all sorts of nonsensical posts about whatever it may be, that, hey, my wife is looking for someone to take care of our kids. Do you think I should get like an au pair or some nonsense, right? And this is like a physician group, and that's allowed, right? That's the type of stuff we're censoring or seeing. That said, I'm a firm believer in personal conversations. Right? I think that so any colleague that asks me, I try to spend some time and talk to them and tell them what I saw. Again, because it's a gift that I was able to witness some of this stuff, and now it's a gift that you allow me to come and talk to you. And so, I hope and pray that you kind of take this message and kind of push it on.
Assalamu alaikum, thank you for coming. So you said you worked in 3 of the 20 busiest trauma centers in the U.S. And so I'm curious how your experience was different just with the tools and the resources you had. And of course, what you're comfortable sharing, but how that was for you when you come back, how it feels to come back to a regular situation in the hospital.
So, good question. So the question is, working at trauma centers in the U.S. compared to working there, what are the resources? So, it's and the answer to some degree, right? That it's vastly different. That in a mass casualty incident in the U.S., you have a ton of resources. You're not short of things simple as gloves. You're certainly not short of operating rooms. There, it's quite different. You're short of everything. I mean, I have looked at children on the floor, and I had a picture of one of them, where the child is still breathing, still has a pulse, and as you look around, and again, I think at this point there were six children, all under the age of 15, and you have to decide. And keep in mind, that child is on the floor because we don't have a stretcher to put that child in. And we have to make the tough decision that these, I think, have a chance to survive. This child, I don't think is going to survive. You kind of pull him to the corner, free up some walking space. There's no pain medicine to give this child. There's nothing, right? And that's tough. I saw that for several weeks on a regular basis, and it's probably unclear what the the mental trauma is from that, I can't even imagine what it will be for doctors that are on a regular basis. Coming back home, to answer the second part of the question, everything is a blessing, right? I mean, everything that we have in the hospitals to work with, everything I have at home. You know, my poor kids, they say they're hungry, and I say, you've eaten today, right? That's still better than a lot of the world, certainly better than what's going on in Gaza.
The people know we have time for about 2 more questions, inshallah, and then we'll look to wrap up. If anybody has the next question.
Just a quick question, like, have you seen, like, what is getting through, what's working, do you have any recommendations on, like, what are good ways to support efforts on the ground? Like, is there anything that you saw in particular, like, what's getting through specific organizations? Like, how can people here, they can't physically be there financially or otherwise, how can they help?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, so, what I usually tell people is be very weary of the smaller organizations that make claims, especially be weary of somebody who says, oh, I know somebody, because the big organization, United Nations World Food Program, those folks are having difficulty doing it. So I'm not going to suggest like a certain charity necessarily. UNWRA, you hear a lot of good things about them. So I will say that I've heard good things, but I think what I will tell everyone is vet whatever organization that you are giving money to. But I still think that what is the most important is your voice. So whatever you do, whatever charity you decide to give to, I think use your voice early, often, do what you see all the college students doing. I think that's going to be really impactful.
Assalamu alaikum. So I don't think it's the most important question, and I hate to finish on it, but I feel like it's the question to ask, which is, what was your exposure to Hamas? And what was your, just kind of read on all that?
Yeah, so that's a hard question to answer because as a doctor, I'm certainly not asking people as they roll in, are you Hamas? What I will tell you is that if every single male between the age October 7th, they said that we are used to when we're being evacuated, and just hear that part of it. We're used to when we are evacuated, so it's just the fact that they're used to being evacuated. It's only a month. It's only like 2 weeks. It's only 40 days max is what they're used to, and so they're tired, right? So just think that you've left your home. And I read one story about some lady who, was pushed away from her house in the north. So now she's in the south. The north and south are cut off. You can't get back to your home. And she kept going to Google Images when she had internet, and kept saying, "This is great. My home is okay." Not realizing, but we all realize that this is not live, right? So when she finally was able to get word, her house was destroyed, her road was destroyed, everything was destroyed. But people are tired, right? Because you go from your home where you have everything, you take what you can, you go to an area that you think you're going to be for a couple of weeks, and then you go back home. Well, no, now you now have to leave from there and go evacuated to another area. Each place you have less and less. And now you can imagine as you approach a year, that's what people feel. They're tired, they want it to end, they want to get on with their lives.
I'd like to invite to the stage Brother Mazen Saleh to close us off, inshallah. And please, a round of applause for Dr. Pathan.
person giving your talk. I'm sure you won't be forgetting what you saw, but as one of the brothers mentioned, we are very proud of you. And actually, it was just today I learned that you were an alumni from NC State as well. So when I learned that, it's just, it's just learning that you were like a few years ago, you're sitting among us, like watching someone else speak about, whatever topic. It's very inspirational, so we appreciate you coming. I just want to quickly wrap up and let you guys know of something very important going on in just a few minutes. So first of all, my name is Mazlum Salah. I'm the Vice President of the MSA, and I just appreciate all of you guys for coming out and, of course, supporting the doctor and supporting Palestine. Of course, thank you to the Lighthouse Project and Army. I know you've been working hard, and the rest of your team, so thank you as well. And also Yasmin and everyone else. I don't know your entire team, but I appreciate all of you. Very importantly, at 7:30 today, so like in 12 minutes, I think it's just over there in room 4140, there's going to be a student government meeting. I think it's like the main Senate meeting where all the student senators, they come together, and today they're actually going to speak about a ceasefire resolution to encourage the university to, inshallah, cut contact with Israel, supporting them directly or indirectly. So that's again happening in just 12 minutes. I think it's like literally over there. So if you have the time, then please come with us. They allow visitors and guests, and there will actually be some opportunities for us to speak out. But just a forewarning, it's a very emotional topic. So if you think that you'll be unable to, maintain like coolness or whatever, then it might be best to not attend. But if you'd like to just attend to show your support or even possibly get the opportunity to speak, then please 11 minutes now. And also, of course, outside we have more information about the boycotts and also free pins. I think they're free. I forgot. Also, after Maghrib, inshallah, there's also going to be some tea, which you guys can, of course, enjoy as well. And yeah, that's about it. Jazakallah khair for everyone for coming. May Allah, firstly, bless the doctor, bless your family, bless your lineage, inshallah. May Allah free Gaza, free Palestine, and may Allah grant all of them ease and grant all of us ease. And may Allah protect us from, suffering as they are right now, and may Allah increase them in reward and grant them and all of us Jannah, inshallah.
Ameen.
Jazakallah.
So part two of the closing announcements, I guess. If you guys want to please make your way to gather some things from the tables outside. We have pins for Palestine. We have stuff that we're sending to raise funds for Palestine as well. Inshallah, we'll pray Maghrib on the second floor in the prayer room. Inshallah, if anybody would like to pray Maghrib. And like Mazen said, just down the hall in room 4140, starting at 7:30, is a Senate meeting for the Student Government Association. If anybody would like to attend to speak out for Palestine, they are more than welcome to do that. Jazakallah khair, and assalamu alaikum. Allahu Akbar.